I thought, you know what? It'd be really good to show how easy PowerApps is and about how I wish they would just try to give it a shot. Just give it a try to see what they could do with it. See how easy it might be to learn. There's some obstacles though, right? Like I understand we got jobs. We got full-time jobs. And that's hard to do. It's hard to learn new stuff when you're working too. And then if you got families and you're trying to take care of your kids and you're trying to cook dinner and you're trying to take care of the house, and there's a lot to it. I know, I get it. I remember the days when I was going to school and having to work full-time jobs at the same time. And, it was always that way. It's a balancing act. But that's kind of the way life is too, right? But at the same time, I see the potential in people. I see the ones that I'm talking to, the ones that I reach out to about this stuff and the ones that Darren does. There's so much potential there. And I can see that maybe they might be interested in trying to make some more money in a different way, in a different direction. Some people are working their tails off. And, when you get older, you can't do that anymore. So it'd be nice to learn a trade that you can count on as you get older, and you just can't do that physical stuff anymore. We all can't play in the NFL after we're 30, right? But then there's the other obstacle that says it's too hard. It's computers. And that comes from my generation. My generation, we didn't have computers, right? When we started off, computers came in the world when we were, coming up. So, I remember computers were supposed to be hard. Oh my. And it was a challenge at first. And I remember it was kind of intimidating, but that's what drove me to doing it, is because I was so intimidated by it. Right. And then I found it wasn't so hard. It just wasn't so hard. But now we have PowerApps, and that just takes it to the easy level, is just taken to a whole new level. They say it's low code and no code, but that's not true. We all know that that's not true. There is some code, and there is some things that you have to learn. But there's things you have to learn about everything. If you get a new job, you have to learn the rules of the company, and you have to learn the rules of the job. Here, we have to learn the rules of the code. We have to learn the rules of programming, But the difficulty level isn't, I don't think it is what you guys are making it out to be. I want to demonstrate something, and I'm hoping that it takes you guys to another place to where you guys think, yeah, maybe it's not so hard. Maybe this might be fun. Maybe this is kind of cool. And maybe it wakens up your imagination. Maybe as I'm drawing something up here on the screen today, you're going to be able to look at that and say, you know what? I could do that. I could do and you could think of a program that you could write, or maybe that could be written. And, it's something for you to try to learn to do. I remember, and maybe you remember, when we were little and we were trying to learn 2 plus 2. And remember, 2 plus 2 used to be kind of hard. We had to count our fingers to get there, 2 plus 2. I still struggle with it today, but 2 plus 2 used to be a hard problem until we figured out how to do it. And now we say 2 plus 2 is easy. The thing I've learned about almost everything in life, a problem is only a problem until you solve it. And once you solve it, it's not a problem anymore. Now it's just a method of how you get things done. And that's kind of what we got to do here. There's a hurdle here that you've got to try to go over. It's not as steep as you think it is. And I also want to say that, going back to the math, if you think about it, some math is pretty hard. We start talking about calculus and statistics and accounting, cost accounting. That's some pretty complicated stuff going on in there. But if you break it down, if you really break it down, it's not. Everything is all about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. 4 things: adding, subtracting, multiply, divide. And everything else is just different variations of that. Now, you can get some pretty complicated stuff in that, with that adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. But and when you break it down to the fundamentals, that's all math is. It's all the same. And so what I want to propose to you guys tonight, I want to challenge you guys to think about this. When it comes to business applications, because that's what we're writing. We're not writing rocket science stuff here, although we could. But most of the time in PowerApps, most of the time in everything, when it comes to writing programs for money, you're writing programs for businesses. And businesses are all about a cycle. It's all about a cycle. Back in the old days when programming was, in the early days of programming, the early days of computers, it was COBOL and RPG. RPG stood for Report Program Generator. I used to call it randomly punched garbage. but it was what it was it worked off of a cycle, a machine cycle that read a record, processed that record, and then wrote the record back to the whatever it was storing it at. That's all we're doing here today. When we talk about records, I suspect that probably everybody listening to me today has probably seen an Excel spreadsheet. You guys have probably seen Excel. You see an Excel spreadsheet. In fact, we're just going to talk about that right now. This Excel spreadsheet right here. You see this right here. This is stuff that you guys have seen. This is nothing but a table right here. It's a table. It's got columns and it's got rows. And on the top of those rows, it's got little headings. What this is data. This is data. That's all this is. This is data. Now, there's not a lot of data here, but I didn't want to put a lot of data there because I just wanted you guys to see this. Now, with these headings here, we put the headings on the top. Why do we do that? So that we can make sense of the data, right? I mean, when we look at 1, 2, 3, we don't know what that is. Or 20, 100, and 300. We don't know what that is. But when we see the heading up there, we say in stock. Oh, that must be the numbers that we've got in stock. So we have these headings, and we've got, and those are on top of all the columns. And then we've got these rows. In spreadsheets, they're called rows and columns. Each row would represent a record. In tables, when we're dealing with tables, in spreadsheets, these are called worksheets. When we're talking about databases, we're talking about a collection, not of worksheets, but it's a collection of tables. In Excel, they're worksheets. In tables, in databases, they're tables. And within spreadsheets, in Excel, they are columns and they're rows. And in databases, they are called fields and records. Each row represents a record. Each row represents a collection of fields that are all related to this one record. And then the next record, the next row, is a collection of fields related to that record. And so on until you're working for General Motors and you have 5 million of those records, right? But it all starts there with one record at a time. And all programs, I don't care how fast they are and how well they collect data, but they all read one record at a time. That's it. And so if you can read a record, process a record, and write a record, I propose that you can just about do everything within PowerApps. Fundamentally. Now, obviously, you know, when you're working with the data, you want to make it look pretty. You want to make the spreads or the spreadsheets. You want to make the screens look pretty. That's what Darren. I just love the screens that he makes. He spends a lot of time working on that. He does a good job. So that's important to be able to do that. It's also fun to do that, right? But that's what we're doing here. And we can spend the rest of the time, the 2 plus 2. And I'm just going to show you the 2 plus 2 tonight. We're not going to get into the weeds. We're not going to get serious. I'm not going to tell you the rules too much because the rules will come. And Darren and I are going to show you guys these rules one mouthful at a time. Because if you get too much, it's just too much and you choke on it, right? So we're not going to do that. We're going to give you guys we're going to give you guys the tricks and the tips and the fun part. Remember when you guys were playing video games and you wanted to find the cheat codes so that you could go farther? We're going to show you the cheat codes. That's what we're going to do. Both of us have collectively spent many, many years working in this stuff. And we've dealt with a lot of pitfalls, and we've dealt with a lot of struggles, and we've tripped up over ourselves, and we've cussed and screamed and cried at these computers quite a bit. Been frustrated many times. And my hope is that we can show you guys the tricks on how not to go down those roads, or when you find yourself in the middle of that road, how to get out of it. And that's kind of what we're going to do. But tonight, I just trying to show you guys we're going to try to break this thing down to its simplest thing. We have a spreadsheet. And I'm showing you this spreadsheet, not because we're going to use it, although we could write a Power App to this spreadsheet right now. We could do it. But I don't like spreadsheets because there's reasons why. It's very hard to protect the data that's in there. So we like to go to databases because they're a little bit more structured. They're a little bit more, we're going to call them typed, but that just means is that the numbers are going to go in this column and letters are going to go in this column. Those are the data types. That's the type of data that's coming in there, numbers and letters. And so it's typed. And so that makes it easier to validate things and keeps the data in there clean and pristine, because the most important thing in all programs is the data. The data is king. And some of you guys will say, no, Elvis is king. But I'm telling you, I learn. I see it every time Darren does a live stream. There's a guy there that says data is king. Data is king. He's right. Data is king. So we want to protect that data. And that's all I'm going to say about this Excel right now. Okay, I'm going to close this thing. Bam, we're done with this. And I'm going to go over here to this collection of data right here. Doesn't it look the same? I mean, the colors are different, right? They're not green and white striped or gray or whatever that is, but they're columns, aren't they? Look at the columns. And look at this. This is a great big collection of data. There's actually 215 more columns here that we could bring into this thing. We're not going to tonight. I just wanted to bring this in here because it's got data in there and I wanted to show you guys the data. That's all. And we're gonna spend time learning how to make data, how to make these tables, how to create them, and what to think about as you're creating these tables. We're gonna talk about all of that, but not tonight. Tonight, I just want to show you the simplicity when we're talking about data. It's not this big mystery. It's nothing different than a spreadsheet. You got a collection of rows and columns, but in our world, in the data tables, in the database worlds, we call them fields and records. And this whole thing is not a worksheet, it's called a table. And we're going to take this data, once it's in here, what PowerApps does, maybe this data's been there since 1970. Maybe it was there just yesterday. PowerApps doesn't care. What we're doing in PowerApps is we're building front ends to that data because we don't want the person who works here with this data to have to enter this stuff in by hand. Could you imagine that job? 215 fields, entering that stuff in by hand. Many of these fields are going to be populated by the program itself. They might have to only enter like maybe 5 or 10 fields, and the rest of it gets populated with the information they did. They're just variations of that information. That's a complicated subject that we're not going to get into tonight. The point I'm trying to make is this, that what we're trying to do is we're going to try to build a really cool looking front end called an interface. The interface to the user interface. That's what PowerApps does. They call that a front end. We build front ends to the back end table stored in the back end. And we're not going to, and there's a lot of reasons why you want to do that. Because when you're looking at it from the program, your program, and you write that program, you're in control of that data. You're reading that record in one at a time, and you're taking that information and you're processing it. And there's probably a user on the other end of that on the keyboard and the mouse, and they're populating fields. They're populating text boxes up there in your program. And you can validate that to make sure that the information is good that they're putting in. You don't want a bunch of Z's in your phone number. Z. It's not a good phone number. So you can have a program, your program can check that. That's what we write front ends for ease of data entry, for validation, and for better control over writing records back to the database. So that's what we're going to do. I just showed you a spreadsheet, and I just showed you a table that looks just like a spreadsheet, and we related them to. And I just wanted to do that because I don't want you guys to think there's a mystery between what is a table, what's a record, what's a field. I don't know what that stuff is. You see that now, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here to this new app. And I just spent the time because sometimes it takes a couple of minutes for this stuff to load up. And I just didn't want us to do that tonight. I wanted to have it already set up for you. And we've got this interface. This is called a canvas right here. You see that you can build a canvas app. Actually, it's called a form or a screen. This is a screen, but it's a canvas because you can. It's art. You guys are going to perform some cool looking art on these screens, right? So I love the terminology of canvas on it. And to the left here, we have two menus here that you're going to spend most of your life in when you're in PowerApps. This stuff over here is how you control what's going on here. This is your collection of screens. You might have 100 screens and they'll all be listed right in here. Bam. And then over here on the right is where for each object that you put out here, and in PowerApps, everything is an object. Everything. Your screens are an object. And we're going to show you all. You've got buttons and text boxes and labels and drop down list boxes and radio buttons and check boxes. Those are all objects. So is the screen. And every object has things called properties. See that? It says properties right there. And this is the stuff that you can create at design time. You can set this information at design time. You can set the color. Look at that. Look how hard that is. Oh my goodness. We just made the background a sea blue. That's pretty hard, wasn't it? Yeah, we just did that. Wasn't too hard at all, was it? I like that. I'm going to go back. Let's go to this. So you can just try different things and put different colors in there. You can play with it. You know, you could put an image in there if you wanted to, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because I want to show you guys how to do something useful, right? So then I'm going to go ahead and it says here, add an item from the insert panel or connect to data, insert pane or connect to data. We'll connect to data because we know that we're going to have to bring some data in here. That's another thing. Whenever you write a program, your program's not going to do too much unless you have some kind of data in it, you know? So, and in PowerApps and in any business application, when you're out there trying to make money with this stuff, you're going to have to know where the data's at. And that's a whole nother topic. We'll spend plenty of time working on that stuff. It's not hard. It's no harder than that. In fact, tonight, I'm probably going to show you guys the hardest function that you'll ever know in PowerApps. We're going to do that. I'm going to show you how easy this is. But within that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to challenge you guys about the hardest thing, the hardest one. And if you can learn that function, the rest of them are easy. We're going to learn one hard function and one complicated maneuver. That's it. And everything else is going to be easy. But if you can do that one complicated maneuver and that one hard function, there's nothing that's going to scare you in PowerApps. Remember when multiplication used to be scary? It's not anymore, is it? Well, for most people, it's not. For me, it is. Okay, so we're going to go get some data. And see this little candle icon over here? It says data right there. So we're going to go over here. We're going to add data. And I want to bring that contacts table in. And I don't see that contacts. So I'm going to see all tables. Oh, there it is right there. Look at that, contacts. And it's going to be loading. And there it is. It's ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to look at the contents in that. We're going to write a little program that shows us the contents in that. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here up here to this insert. This is hard, guys. Oh, this is so hard. We're going to put a gallery on there. A gallery. You know what a gallery is, right? You've seen art galleries, right? Well, it's going to display art here. We're going to create some art here. Some data art is what we're going to do. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select this layout. And I'm going to select blank vertical gallery. Remember that name, guys, blank vertical gallery, because that's what we use all the time, most of the time, 90% of the time, blank vertical gallery. We're going to put that on there. Look at that. Puts it on there. And look at this. It's telling us we need to put some data in there. Well, we know we're going to go ahead and put contacts in there. So let's go ahead and enter that in there. There it goes. And it gives us this thing up here, this properties. Now, see this data source right here? That's your items. And that's contacts right there. It's that table that we were just looking at. It's putting that thing. That's called our data source. Our data source right there is contacts. It's the contacts table that we just brought in. Pretty hard stuff. Did you see that? I clicked one button and it put it in there, just like that. And let's just see if it's in there. So guess what we're going to do now? I'm going to make sure I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust this, because this is going to be the width of your row. You see how you got this big square right here? That's your gallery. And then the little square inside of that, if I can get to it, right there, that's going to be the row, each row in that gallery. Each row is going to represent a record in that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert some stuff in there so that it'll show the records that are the information that's in there. So let's go ahead and insert a text label. Let's put that in there. Well, it just put stuff in there for me. I didn't even do nothing. I just brought that in. Pretty hard stuff, wasn't it? Look at that. See how hard that was? He just brought that full name right in there for us. Apparently there's a blank record in here. And that's how come this is blank sitting right here. So you can make this thing, you can adjust it, you can take your mouse and adjust the size of it. See how I got text hanging there? I can just drag it to make it look the way I want it to. See, this is why I call it art, because you're drawing this thing. And you can come over here and you can do all kinds of stuff. Look at this font. You got total control of the fonts here. Fonts and the font size. We can make it normal or we can make it bold. Let's make it bold. I don't care. Let's get bold here. Look at that. We just made it bold. This is so hard, guys, isn't it? Look how hard this is. Look at this. We can even change the color. We can make this thing dry blood red if we wanted to. Or we can make it blue. Or we could just stay professional. Kind of make it black. That's okay, right? So we can do things with this. This kind of neat. So for now, and you know, I'm going to do something else, and this is a difficult maneuver, right? No, I'm not going to do that yet. I won't do that yet. I don't want to put you guys through it yet. Let's see if we got email addresses on here. Let's put another one here, and let's insert a label. I haven't really looked at that. So let's just see what we got here. In fact, we're just going to see what we got. Is that going to put that in there for me? No. Okay, so what you got, one of the things you got to do is you got to make sure that you're in this, so it'll put it in that for you. So I'm going to hit Control X because that's the hotkey for cut. I'm going to make sure that I'm in that. I'm going to make sure that's highlighted. And I'm going to hit Control V because that's the hotkey for paste. And I'm going to bring this over here. And I'm going to come over to my data source. And my views. My fields. I'm going to edit that. Look at this. Anything that appears in this is going to come up from here. And I've got label 1 and label 2, which isn't very descriptive. And really, I probably should rename some of that. But we're not going to talk about that tonight. For now, I'm just going to be putting the information in there. So I've got full name in there. Let's see if we've got, see, look at this. We're going to do this. And at design time from this window, I'm not running the program or anything. I can come down here and I can look. And I can see what information I got in here. Look at all this stuff I got. I'm not seeing the email though. Oh, yes, I just saw it. Look at that right there. Look at that. Bam. Email. See the ants going across the screen? That means it's getting something. It's pulling information in from that table. It's bringing it in. I talked too much. And what happened was it closed the connection. So now it's got to open the connection and refresh this stuff. When it gets done, it's going to show that. So I'm going to go on. Look, oh, there it is right there. Look at there. Brought it in. Just like that. Now, we didn't have to do it from there. We could have done it from another place. And now we're going to get, you see this up here? You got the text. This is a label that I put up here. And one of the properties is text. And I can actually come up here. If I click on this text right here, watch this. I'm going to click on font weight. You see how I changed it over here to font weight? whenever you click on over here, it will put it on over here into your, or you can do a drop down over here. It's just whatever you're used to or whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable doing. Sometimes if I'm over here, I'll come over here and work with this. But if I'm already over here, I'll just click on this. I want to work on this text. Now look at this. I got this item. Now we're talking about some code here. This is hard code, guys. Isn't this hard? This item. Well, what does that mean? It just means whatever currently item that you got that's selected right now, it's going to show that email address. And it's going to put it in that label right there. I want to just see some of the other stuff they got in here. We got this thing called IntelliSense, which means it's going to help you so that you don't have to type all the stuff in if you don't need to, or it's going to help you find stuff. And you know that you're on the right path when you're writing your code across there, because that IntelliSense is coming up. Now watch what happens if I misspelled that. Let's say I go this item like that. See the red squigglies? That tells you that it's a mess. You got a problem here. We don't know what that is. And you'll see that there's no IntelliSense coming up. But if I come back here and I type the right code in or the right letter in, it's gonna actually bring up IntelliSense. See that? Look at that. Decent, right? And I can go down this thing and I can just kind of see what we got. We got all kinds of fields in here, right? Now you'll see this. I'm not a good typer, so I don't have to type up this item totally. I can just hit tab right here, I think, because it's the very first item here. Or if I want something below here, I can just click on that with my mouse. But if I type enough to bring that up to the first item, I just hit tab. Look at what it does. Fills it in for me. And I hit dot. And then it's going to bring all that information back up. Now, if I hit email, or if I hit E for email, see education, then I hit M, and it brings that right up. Gosh, this is so hard, fellas. This is so hard, isn't it? I just can't believe people actually pay big money for this. Isn't that crazy? They actually pay us to do this. It's like, sometimes I feel like we're stealing. You know, somebody should call the police because there's a robbery going on here, right? It's just so simple, isn't it? Look at that. I just brought in email. So I showed you guys, you can do it from here or you can do it from there. Two different places you can do it from. This doesn't look very nice though, does it? I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Let's just bring that up just so that it looks a little more presentable. Darren will not like me very much if I don't have that. I've got a little Darren on my shoulder over here going, Kurt, that doesn't look nice. You can make it look better than that. Right? So we have some sample data here. And then what I want to do is I want to do a little complicated maneuver here. We're going to go over here to the advanced properties. Advanced properties. And we're going to wait a second here because this is going to open up here in a minute. It's got to wait. It's initializing everything. Sometimes it takes a minute. My goodness, this is really taking some time too, isn't it? Finally, we got this. Finally opens up, right? So then we come down here, and I want to go all the way to the bottom because they got this thing called template fill. Okay. And I'm just going to put some stuff up here. You see that it's RGBA, which is just the red, green, blue. It's the color codes. And they're different. They're numbered. They're hex numbered. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that tonight because that's just complicated. But what I want to do is I want to set this up so that whatever record we're on, we can see, we'll know which record we're selecting. So I want to do that. And I'm going to put a little condition right here. And I'm just going to do an if statement. And I'm going to say if this item, see, I can't even type. Look at this. You don't have to learn how to type to do this, guys. If this item oh my goodness, look at that. dot is selected. See, it's on the first one. Is selected, comma, color, light blue. Oh boy. Dot, light blue. Else, I want to just have that white in there. Let's see what I just did there. Look at that. Now when I run this, look at there. Look how hard that is. We did quite a bit with just one little line of code, didn't we? And yeah, I knew how to do that and you didn't know how to do that, but I just want to show you how easy it is once you know how to do that. And you've got this video and you can watch it and then you can learn how to do it. You already know what this item is. What is this item? Can anybody tell me? It's the current item, the current row. This item is whatever's highlighted right there. Right? So I come over here to this X, kill the program. I'm running it. You can see how I've got that light blue right there. So I want to do, we got a full name going on here. So I want to put some text boxes and some labels up here. Let's say we want to break that up into last name and first name. I bet they've got a last name and first name up there. I'm going to bring a label up here and we're going to call it first name. First name. And then I'm going to put a text box up here, text input box. That's what it's called in PowerApps, text input. I'm going to put that up here. And I'm just going to put in here, I'm going to put some hint text. And I'm just going to put, for the default, I'm going to have nothing in there. Oh, you know what I'm going to do for the default? I'm going to put what is the record here, but I'm going to use the first, not the full name. I'm just going to use the first name. Okay. So I'm going to come up here. And I'm going to use the name of this gallery. Gallery 1. Well, that's not very descriptive. And I'm going to be using this in code. So I'm going to change the name of that because I don't like it. I'm going to call it gal, G-A-L. That stands for gallery. And I'm going to call it, this is contacts. Gal contacts. Okay. Now this has a name. And I guess I wanted to tell you that too. Let me tell you. You can put that's something that gets confusing with a lot of people. They say, look at all these words. How do you know to put that in there like that? You could put any name you wanted. You could call that gal Kurt. You could call that gal nothing, or you could have just left it the same. But whatever you name it, you got to just make sure that that's unique. And remember that that's what you called it, because it's got to be that name for that. Whenever you say gal contacts, it's going to be talking about this gallery right here. So we have gal contacts. And I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to say gal. Now watch this. Look at that. Gal contacts comes right up. It knows that. Dot selected, whatever this, and then, oh, look at that. It came right up. Whatever was selected, dot, and now the field. So it's the record. When you say selected, that means that's the current record. Gal contacts, that's your source. That's your table. Underneath gal contacts is the contacts table. And then selected is going to be the record, the current record you're on. And then these are all fields. And I'm going to say dot first. Let's see if they got a first name. Yep, look at that. And it's in quotes because there's a space in there. I'm going to click on that. Now let's see what happens when we run this now. See, that's the other thing that's nice about this. You add some things and then you run it to test it. So let's test it. Look at that. I got just Yvonne in there. Susanna, look at there. Isn't that pretty cool? Nancy, pretty nice, huh? So now we want to put the last name in there. Okay. So instead of bringing this stuff up here, there's another thing we can do. There's some cool tricks and tips you can do with this. I'm going to line these up one time because Darren doesn't like things being sloppy. See, that's sloppy. So what we want to do is we click on those two things and we can align left. Look at that. It lines it up nice. Now we could also group them together, but I'm not going to for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy those. I highlighted those and I'm going to hit Control C because that's what you hit for copy. That's the hotkey for copy. And then I'm going to unhighlight those and I'm going to hit Control V because that's the hotkey for paste. Remember those keys, guys. Control C, Control S, Control V. You use them in everything, not just in PowerApps. You use them in your word processing and all that. It just makes it faster. So then you come over here and you got, instead of first name, we're going to call this last name. And instead of this, we don't want it to be Nancy. We don't need two first names, right? So what we're going to do, oh, and we're not in the right thing. See, that's line height. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on this default and it moved it right over there. And instead of first name, they should have a last name in here. So I'll put last name. Oops. If you spell it right there, look at there. There's the last name right there. Bam. Put it right in there for me, didn't it? You can do all that kind of stuff with this. And then here's another thing we can do. Here's something else we can do with this. We can do a search on this. Maybe we want to do a search because this is a big table. Look at this. Oops. I guess you got to run it before you do this. Watch this. We run this. Look at all those records in there. So let's see if we can do a search. It's kind of a mess right there, isn't it? Look at that. You got to see. It's not even, we need to sort that, don't we? That sounds like a pretty complicated operation, right? Sorting this table. Sorting this table could be hard. Shall we try it? Let's try it. I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I'm going to try. I'm going to come over here and we'll click on this data source. And that gives me items. And see how we have this contacts here? I'm going to put this function out there only because I know it's there. Sort. That's how I knew. I said, I wonder if they got a sort function. What would you call it? Sort. And the very first parameter, see, it tells you right up here, the source. It's looking for the source. And then the next one is looking for the expression. When they say expression, it means it could be a table, or it could be two tables together, or it actually could be a calculated field. You could do that to sort it. So we're just gonna sort this thing on last name. Last name. Okay. Just for now. Sort contacts, last name. Doesn't like it. I got to put them quotes on there. Now it likes it. See there? Last name came up. Look at this. Anderson, Burt, Campbell, Cannon. Pretty cool, huh, guys? Isn't that cool? That's how it works. But we're going to take one more step above this thing. We're actually going to do a search in this. We're going to get dangerous maneuvers. Remember I told you we're going to do a dangerous maneuver? We're going to do one. Wait, maybe our employer wants to be able to search on these customers. Maybe this is General Motors and it doesn't have 50 records in here. It's got 5 million. For some reason, whenever I talk about General Motors, I always talk about 5 million records. I don't know why. I always do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this text box right here because I'm too lazy to come up here. I've got this all set up the way I want it. So I'm going to hit Control C, copy that, and I'm going to click outside of it. I'm going to hit Control V. And then I'm going to come over here and drag it back up over here. This is the most complicated, dangerous maneuver that you can get doing a search. We're going to do a search on that thing. And for the default, we're going to say nothing. There's nothing in there. And in here, we're going to do a search. And we already did the sort. See, this sort contacts last name. That's the data source. See, it's looking for its data source. And then it's telling us the text that you want to be sorted. we're going to be addressing that. So we don't want text input 1_2. We want to rename that. We're going to call this TXT because that's the abbreviation and the notation for text, because that's a text input box, right? You didn't need to know that right now. I'm just explaining that to you. Someday we're going to talk about that in depth. But for now, we're just going to rename it because it makes more sense to, okay? TXT search. That's it right there, TXT search. Boy, and I got all kinds of bad stuff in there right now because I've got this thing in here that doesn't want to work yet because it needs more parameters. These are called parameters. This is a function. This is another function. That's the dangerous maneuver. Okay, you see that? People pay big money for this. If you could put a function inside of a function in programming language, that's called a nested function. Sounds complicated, doesn't it? It's really not. You want to sort the data before you can do a search, right? So we did a sort. It makes the data look pretty and it's easier to search it. And then we're going to do a text, this TXT search. Whatever we put in here, we're going to search. So we're going to go comma, because see that up here? It wants a comma up there. See that? You got the source and then you got a comma. It wants a comma there. And then it says text. It's trying to help you. It's trying to help you jog your memory. What do I got to put in there? What am I supposed to put in there? I don't know. I look up there and I say, oh, text. That's the text I need to search. And it's going to be this one right here. So I'm going to call it TXT search. And there it is. I just hit tab. And I'm going to put dot text because you have to put that property in there. And of course, you're going to be doing this over and over and over again. So you're going to get very good at it. And then you're going to say, comma, the field that you want to search. And we're going to do last name, right? I think this will work. Let me get this comma in here. Oh, not that way. How about this one? Oh my goodness, I'm still not typing. See, I am living proof that you don't need to know how to type to be able to write programs. Look at this, last name. Bam. Just like that. Okay. But now the problem is it's not going to find any data here. So I need to do another if here. Let's run this first. Let's just see what we got with our search. Let's see what it does. If I do the way we're doing this right now, if I hit an L, uh-oh, there's ants coming up here. That means it's got data coming in. Let's be cool for a minute. Hey, finally. So that's what happens is now finally when the data quit comes, we've got all this information here. And so it's showing this. And then if I type in A, look at that, Anderson. If I come in here, look at there. Look how that's working right there. That's pretty good, isn't it? I'm going to type in B. See, because I was just typed in B, there's a B in Burke, a B in Campbell. There's all kinds of B's in Stuberod. But if I type BU, it narrows it down. If I type Campbell, right? There we go. And it brings it right in. Whatever's selected. See, now we only have one record. It's pretty neat, isn't it? See how easy that is? It's so simple, isn't it? So let's create another table where we're going to put this information. We're going to pull this out here and we're going to write it to another record, or another table. Let's do that. That's complicated. Doesn't that sound complicated? Let's just do that one time. Just because we read a record and we processed the record. And now I want to do something with that record once we process it. Okay? So let's do that. Let's create another table out here. Let's go back over to my other tab, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back to tables, and I'm going to create a new table here. New table, and I'm going to call this table Kurt's contacts. Kurt's contacts, just like that. I'm gonna hit save. And I want to encourage you guys to bring up your own Power Apps and your own tables and try this stuff yourself. Just watch the video, stop it, and try it just to see if you can do it. It's kind of, we're actually doing quite a bit here if you think about it. So I've got this empty thing. Now this thing called name has to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the full name in that. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create I'm going to put the full name in there. Whenever it's time to do that. And we're going to talk about that later. It's a required field. Text has to go in there. So let's put something useful in there. Maybe we'll put a sort name in that so that we can sort the whole name, full last name and first name if we wanted to later down the road. We're not going to do that tonight. I just want to put some records, some data in here. We're going to create an empty database, an empty table, and then we're going to take that information from that one and we're going to bring it into this one. Okay. Because we're going to change, maybe we want to change the data to suit our needs and we don't want to mess up the first table, right? So, okay, so then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new, I'm going to go to columns, sorry. I'm going to go to columns and I'm going to create a new column. And I'm going to call this one last name. Oops. Last name. And it's going to be a single line of text. It's text. I'm going to save it. I'm just showing you guys how hard this is. Look, we're just going to create records. We're going to create a field here. I'm going to sort this one so that we see the stuff that we created. Look at that last name right there. And then I'm going to create another column. I'm going to call it first name. First name. And that's good. Same thing, single line of text, formats text, save. And I'm going to do it again, create another one. I'm going to call it email. Single line of text, same thing, hit save. And this is so hard. I'm actually creating row or columns in your spreadsheet is what it is. So we have email, first name, last name here. And then that's all I need because I would put a sort name in there, but I'm going to use the name table, that name field right here as that. And probably that's not really a good idea, but for the purposes of this exercise, it'll work. Okay. And we're not going to get into the reasons why that might not be a good idea, but for the purpose of this exercise, I just want to do something very simple that you guys have been seeing so that you guys can see how easy this is. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a button here. I'm going to put a button on the, just like that. Look how easy that was. And I'm going to change this button. And I'm going to call this save to Kurt's contacts. Oh, I just gave it the name. That's funny. How about if I go BTN save? And then if I put here, I put save to Kurt's contacts. How's that? It's like that. Oh, but that's too much, right? So guess what? We just make it a little longer. And there. Now our button takes care of it. And we're just going to put that information and we're going to save it to a whole nother table here. We're going to pull this information, whatever record we select, and we're going to click over here and we're going to put it on that one. Sound good? And I'm going to remove it from this table, from this. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. No, this is all I'm going to do for now. I'm just going to do this for now. We just got to make sure that we don't do duplicates in it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I've got this saved, and I'm going to go click on this on select. Now I'm going to tell you about the most complicated function in all of PowerApps. It's called the patch function. And we use patch. Patch is called, it's called patch in PowerApps. You could just call this save data. You could call this submit. But you're just writing the record to you're writing whatever information that you've got in that patch to the table that you're addressing. We're going to show you this. This is the most complicated one. If you can do this, I promise you guys, if you can do this function, there's not a function that you can't do in PowerApps. There's nothing you can't do in PowerApps. This is the hardest thing there is. And it's just not that hard if you can make it work. Let's try it. So we're going to the first thing in a function is the function name. We're going to call it patch. There it is right there. And the second thing you got to do is you got to give it the first parameter. There's 3 parameters that you're going to do in this patch. The first one is the data source that you're wanting to patch. And we called this, I think we called it Kurt's contacts. But you know what we got to do before we do that? We've got to bring that data source in here. So let's do that first. Let's bring this data source in. Remember, we added that table. So we got to add some data. And we're going to go to see all the tables. And we got to find it here. What do we call that table? What do we call that table? Okay, so now what we're going to do is finish up our process here, see if that's in there. Sometimes it takes a minute to get in there after you make it. And I'm going to go ahead and go down here to the K's. And oh, there it is, Kurt's contacts. Look at that, bam. Okay, now it's in here. So now we can go ahead and save information to it. So we're going to do a patch. We're going to patch it into Kurt's contacts. There it is, Kurt's contacts. That's the first parameter. And then the second parameter of this most complicated function is the record that you want to do. Now, we're not going to get into adding new records until now. And this is the hardest part of it, right? So we're going to create this thing called defaults. We're going to go ahead and do defaults of this new record right here. It's telling you, instead of the exact record number or the record position that you're on in the table, it's saying put a blank record out there and have it ready to put information in those fields. I mean, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do the defaults, and it's going to be the exact same name that you put in the context, Kurt's contacts. And it's going to be Kurt's contacts right here. And then we're going to do the third parameter, which is the actual information that we're going to put in there. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter here. And whenever you're creating a record, and this is probably just about any language that you ever use, the delineation is the curly brackets. The open curly bracket and the closed one. And in between, that tells us this is expecting an entire record. So we're going to have different fields. These are going to be field values coming in. So we're going to be addressing the field values that are in Kurt's contacts. And the first one we're going to be called its last name, or we're going to address, yeah, last name. And see, it puts those little dots in there, that colon right there, puts that in there for you. That's the field name. And then we're going to say, well, what field name are we going to put in? Well, we're going to put in whatever value is in this text box right here. This right here. Now I've got text input 1. Once you address it in code, you need to change that. So I'm going to call this TXT last name. I might as well do this with this one too, because I'm going to do it. So I'm going to put it in there too. So I'm going to go TXT first name. Oops. Just like that. What else did we have in there? Let's go take a look at that data. We had first email. That was the other one. That was the one I was trying to remember. I was pretty sure we put that in there. I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes it's good to double check. So I'm going to go, we don't have email here, but guess what? We have email over here. So we'll use this table to bring that email in. Okay. We could make a field, a text box over here for that. So we're going to go last name, and it's going to be txt last name dot text. Using the IntelliSense, you don't have to type out the whole thing. Isn't that nice? Look at that. And then since this is a set of fields, we're going to do commas here. The last one, you don't have to do a comma, but you need to make it's a comma separated list is what you have here. And then we're going to say first name. Look at that, brings it right up. And we're going to say txt first name, brings it right up. Dot T, hit tab, and then that's done. Then we're going to do the email. No, the other email. Then it brings it up. And I'm going to, instead of saying txt, because we don't have that, but I do have it over here. And I'm going to use it. We're not in that gallery, right? So I'm going to use gallery 1 or contacts, I think is what it was called, right? Yep. Look at that. Gal contacts. That's what's nice about the IntelliSense. I can never remember what I called something. So it gives me a hint right there, right? Dot selected. See that selected is right there. So I just hit tab. Dot email. Other email. There it is. Look at that. And then I'm going to hit the comma, and then we're going to get complicated here. I'm going to type name. Well, it should, oh, there it is, right? Name. And then I'm going to take this is going to be kind of like for a sort, right? I'm going to say txt last. Dot text. And what I want to do is, if you say plus, when you're adding something together, 2 plus 2, when you're adding two numbers together, you're making it equal a sum, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. But when you're adding two strings together, we have the last name and then we have the first name, and we want to splice them together. We're going to splice them together. That's called concatenating a string. A string is a string of characters. This is string data. Whenever you're dealing with text, you're dealing with the text. You're dealing with string data. Text and string are used interchangeably. Okay. So we're going to take txt last or txt last name dot text, and then we're going to put an ampersand here. The ampersand is how you add two strings together. Then I'm going to put a comma and a space, because I want there to be just like a last name, comma, first name, and you want a space so that it makes sense to read it, makes it easier to read it. Then I'm going to do another concatenation, txt first name dot text, right? And that's it. That's the patch function, except for I've got to close it, because whenever you have an open bracket, you have to have a closed one, right? So I'm going to go ahead and press enter here, and I'm going to do a close. And another thing I'm just going to show you just really quick. It even helps you to know if you typed it all in right, not only do you not see squigglies, but you'll see this format text is enabled. If I don't put that there, watch this. Format text goes away and I can't click it because there's a problem. You see a little red mark there. Sometimes you can't see that red mark, but you can see this, and it's telling you that there's a problem. So I'll put that in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and format this text. It makes it look nice. Look at there. Makes it look really nice there. So you have, and again, this is the hardest function that you're going to ever have to do. And I wanted to demonstrate this because I wanted to just show you guys out the door that this is the hardest it's going to get. There's nothing harder in here. The rest of it is just simply learning how to make things look pretty and getting and mastering it. You're just going to draw, you're going to put text boxes and labels and galleries out there and buttons on the field, and you're going to make this thing work, and you're going to practice. You're going to just play with the properties, make the colors change, make the sizes change, practice reading data into those tables or into those fields, and then writing it back. And so what we've done too with this patch statement, this is writing the record. We're writing an entire record. Remember I told you earlier on, this is all about reading a record, processing the record, and then writing the record. So whenever we click this button, it's going to go and it's going to save that information to this Kurt's contacts. In fact, what we're going to do here is I'm going to bring in another gallery. I'm going to bring in another gallery because it's just so easy to do. And blank vertical gallery. I'm going to move this thing here, and I'm going to click on this row because this is the rows that it's going to make. I'm going to make that smaller. I'm going to make this smaller. I'll make this smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that display name that we did, just so that you can kind of see it work. Now, Darren's going to say, Kurt, this is ugly. He's already saying, this is ugly, Kurt. You can make this look a lot prettier. But I'm just kind of showing you how fast and easy you can do this, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a text label to this. Let's put sample data in here because we don't have any real data in here. In fact, we probably should do that. It just reminded me that's what we need to do. So for the data source, we don't have one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in Kurt's contacts to it. And I'm going to sort that. We know how to sort that, don't we? I'm going to sort that on the name field because that name is the last name plus first name, right? And I'm going to hit comp, and then that's done, just like that. And on here, I've got this label, and I'm just going to put that right in here because that's all we're going to use. And let's see if we can make this work the way we want it to. Let's click on that, and let's go to the fields and edit the fields and see this. Look at that, label 4, we got this item name. That's what I want to put. I'm going to put this item name in there, but there's no data in there yet, right? So that's what we got to make sure we can see this data. So hopefully when we do this, we're going to read this in, we're going to do something. Maybe we'll change the name a little bit, and then we're going to click save, and it's going to put it in there. See how this has got sample? Let's get rid of the sample stuff, right? Let's do that. I think that's a smart idea. So let's try it. Let's see what happens. Maybe I got it right. So we're going to click on Thomas Anderson, and we're going to get rid of this sample here. We don't like that sample in there. All right. And then I'm going to hit Save to Contacts. Oh my goodness, look at that. You notice the sample's gone. Did you see that? We just read a record. We processed the record by getting rid of that sample, and we got a clean, pretty name in there put into Kurt's contacts. Because Kurt doesn't want sample data in there. He wants real stuff. Kurt's contacts. That is worthy of Kurt's contacts, right? And did you see how hard that was? Again, we did the hardest thing there was. We added a record to the table. It's always hard to add a record, isn't it? Didn't you see how hard that was? Let's do it again. I'm going to go down here to Susan Burke, and I'm gonna get rid of that sample there. I don't like that sample there. I'm going to hit Kurt's contacts. Look at that. Just like that. See how easy this is? Let's go down here to Lyon. Robert Lyon. We don't need a sample of Robert Lyon. We want the real Robert Lyon. And then let's go up here to Cannon, Paul Cannon, because we're at our sort order. And let's just see how it inserts that in there for us. Look at that. Inserted it right underneath there. And that's it, guys. That's what we did tonight. You just, in this amount of time, and I know I probably got a little bit long, but in this small amount of time, you saw what an Excel spreadsheet was and correlated that to what a database table is. And then we brought in a sample table that had a table that had all kinds of records in it. We looked at those items. We did a search on it. We searched the data. We brought the stuff into fields and we changed the data. So we read the record, we processed the record, and we wrote the record. Do you know right there, we wrote a complete application right there. Didn't break a sweat. Not one little bit. And I guess what I'm wanting you guys to do is to try this. Take this video and watch this video, pause it, try some stuff, pause it, try some more stuff, and see if you can make this thing work just like that. I bet you can. And let's just start there, guys. For you guys that we want to try to get involved in this thing, get excited about this, because there's money for it right here, guys. And I just want to say that again. I can't say it enough. There is such a demand on PowerApps programmers that if you can do this right here, you can just about, you're going to make some pretty good money. I bet Darren would probably say maybe 20 bucks an hour. Maybe 20 bucks an hour. Anyway, so that's all I got for tonight. I hope that this was helpful. I hope this excites you as much as it excites me. I wish there was something I could do. And another thing I'd like you guys to do is tell me and Darren, what are your concerns about trying to learn this thing so that we can address those concerns. I think that's the most important thing. And maybe that's something that we need to talk about. Maybe we need to get everybody together and say, okay, what are the things that scare you the most and it makes you want to stop doing this, or that keeps you away from it? And I realize the time is part of it. But remember, you got to invest in yourself a little bit and you got to prioritize. Maybe we'll watch a little less TV. Maybe it's not football season right now. Anyway, you guys, thanks a lot for listening to me. I hope this helped, and you guys have a good night. Okay.